This video is not going to be motivational fluff. This is math. This is mechanics. This is the invisible stuff that keeps 90% of people running hard and staying in place. By the end, you are going to have a simple way to spot these traps, price them, and shut them down. Because right now, most people are fighting the wrong enemy. They are arguing with themselves about coffee, while a $1,000 leak is dripping quietly under the sink. Let me start with the first invisible wealth killer, the one that creates the rest. The poverty premium, the cost of being broke. If you have a cushion, you get discounts. You buy in bulk. You pay annual instead of monthly. You get the lower insurance premium. You get the better interest rate. You get the preferred customer treatment. If you do not have a cushion, you pay retail for existence. You buy small because that is what you can afford today, then you pay more per unit forever. Here's a simple example that feels stupid until you do the math. Two people buy the same household essentials. One can afford the big pack, the other can only afford the small pack. Over a year, the person buying small pays an extra few dollars every week. That turns into hundreds of dollars for the same toilet paper, the same detergent, the same diapers, the same exact life. Now ask yourself a question. If the world charges you extra for being low on cash, how do you ever build cash? That is the trap. The poverty premium shows up in ways that feel normal, which is why it is so deadly. When you are stretched thin, you cannot float a big purchase even if it is cheaper long-term. So you rent everything. You rent furniture. You rent electronics. You rent your phone. You finance your tires. You pay monthly for stuff you can own because monthly is the only door that is open. And the monthly door is always the expensive door. Here is the second invisible wealth killer, and it is one of the most brutal wealth transfer machines ever invented. Fees. Not interest. Fees. Interest at least has a story. You borrowed money, you pay for it. Fees are different. Fees are punishment for being human while not having a buffer. Let's do the cleanest example. You have $20 in your account. A subscription you forgot about tries to charge $25. You are now -$5. The bank does not say, "No worries." The bank says, "That will be $35." Think about what just happened. You effectively borrowed $5 for a very short period of time, and it cost you $35. That is not a normal interest rate. That is a trap rate. If you borrow $5 and pay $35 in fees, you paid 7 times what you borrowed. That is a 700% fee relative to the amount you were short. And that is why the poor stay poor. One small timing mistake becomes a financial injury. Now here's the question most people avoid. Why is the fee so high? Because the fee is not designed to cover costs. It is designed to be profitable. It is designed to train you through pain. It is behavior modification with a price tag. And it gets worse because fees stack. You overdraft, you pay the fee, which makes you more negative, which triggers another fee, which makes you more negative, and now you are in a spiral. Not because you bought a yacht, because a bill hit 2 days before payday. This is not a character flaw. This is a cash flow trap. And once you are in it, you start making the decisions that look irrational from the outside, but are totally rational from the inside. You ignore the check engine light. You delay the dentist. You put off the replacement tire. You stretch the groceries. You hope the problem waits until next month. That is the third invisible wealth killer. The expensive consequences of delay. When you do not have $300 for the small fix, you eventually pay $2,000 for the big fix. And the economy is full of these compounding penalties. Late fees, higher interest, missed work, stress spending, medical issues that get worse because you tried to tough it out. Every time someone says, "Just be disciplined," they are ignoring that discipline is easier when mistakes are cheap. If your mistakes cost you $5, you can learn. If your mistakes cost you $500, you drown. So how do we escape it? First, we have to name the real goal. The goal is not a budget. The goal is margin. Margin is what turns emergencies back into inconveniences. Margin is what makes your life cheaper. Now, I know what you are thinking. Cool, I would love margin. Where do I buy it? You build it by killing the invisible wealth killers that drain it before it forms. So let's talk about the fourth invisible wealth killer, the real hourly wage lie. Most people think their pay is their pay. If you make $60,000 a year, you do quick math and you think, that is about $30 an hour. But that is not your real hourly wage, because you are not selling 8 hours a day. You are selling your whole day. You sell commute time. You sell getting ready time. You sell the brain space you lose to stress. You sell the extra convenience costs that exist only because your day is consumed. Let's run a simple example. Say you earn $60,000 a year. Taxes and payroll deductions hit first. Your take-home might be closer to $40,000, $5,000 depending on where you live and your benefits. Now add work expenses. Commuting costs money. Gas, wear on the car, parking, transit passes, clothes you would not buy otherwise, lunches you buy because you ran out of time, the coffee you need to stay functional, the random convenience spending that comes from being drained. If those work-related costs are, say, $5,000 a year, that is money you only spend to keep the job. Now your 45 becomes 40. Now add time. If you work 40 hours, but you spend 5 hours commuting and another 5 hours getting ready, decompressing, and doing the life admin the job creates, you might be spending 50 hours a week on the job ecosystem. Now your hourly rate is not 30. It is 40,000 divided by the total hours you actually gave away. 40,000 per year divided by 50 hours a week times 50 weeks is 40,000 divided by 2,500 hours. That is $16 an hour. You thought you were earning 30, in reality you are living at 16. And here is the punchline. If you spend like you earn 30, you will always feel broke. That is why so many people with good salaries still feel trapped. They are budgeting against a fantasy number. So one of the biggest wealth upgrades you can make is simply calculating your real hourly wage and then using it like a flashlight. Because when you realize a $50 impulse purchase is actually 3 hours of your life, it hits different. Now the fifth invisible wealth killer is psychological, and it is everywhere. The decoy effect. You walk into a situation intending to buy the cheap option. Then the menu gives you 3 choices. The middle choice exists only to make the expensive choice feel reasonable. This is not theory. This is how pricing is engineered. Streaming plans, phone storage tiers, airline seats, gym memberships, even your coffee order. They are not asking, what do you want? They are asking, how do we move you up one rung? And it works, because your brain is not good at absolute value. Your brain is good at comparison. So you end up spending more, not because you decided the expensive thing was worth it, but because it was placed next to a decoy that made it feel like a deal. Here is the scary part. The decoy effect does not steal your money in one giant transaction. It steals your money in tiny upgrades that become your baseline. And that leads into the sixth invisible wealth killer, the one that ruins high earners. Lifestyle creep, powered by the hedonic treadmill. You get a raise. You feel relief for a little while. Then your brain adapts. The new number becomes normal. Then you start upgrading little things because you can now. A nicer apartment, a nicer car, more delivery, more subscriptions, better clothes, better everything. And each upgrade feels small in isolation, but collectively, the upgrades rebuild your cage at a higher price. The treadmill is brutal because it convinces you the problem is your income. If I just make a little more, I will finally feel safe. Then you make more and your life expands to absorb it. And if you want to see this in the real world, look at the modern car payment. This is the seventh invisible wealth killer, and it is one of the most normalized forms of financial self-sabotage in the entire economy. A car is not just a purchase, it is a subscription with depreciation. People will argue about a $10 subscription, then calmly sign up for a $700 monthly car payment for 7 years. And the dealership knows exactly how to get you there. They do not sell you a car. They sell you a monthly payment. If they can stretch the loan term long enough, they can fit almost any car into your budget. But here is the math moment you need to see. If you pay $700 a month, that is $8,400 a year. Do that for 7 years and you paid nearly $60,000, and that is before higher insurance, maintenance, and the opportunity cost. Now imagine instead you bought a reliable used car and your payment difference was $400 a month. Not zero, just $400. $400 a month invested over decades turns into a life-changing number. Because compound growth is not a vibe, it is an engine. 400 a month is 4,800 a year. If that compounds at a reasonable long-term market return, the account eventually becomes a second paycheck. This is why the car payment is not just a bill. It is a wealth transfer from your future self to your present self with interest, and it is also a status trap. Which brings us to the 8th invisible wealth killer: status spending. There is a weird glitch in humans. We do not only buy things for function, we buy things for identity and for rank inside a social group. The painful truth is that many people do not want to be wealthy. They want to look wealthy. And looking wealthy is expensive. Luxury goods are engineered to be irrational. The high price is the feature. The point is not comfort. The point is exclusion. So if you are spending to signal, you are basically paying a tax to impress people who are also paying a tax to impress you. And social media turned this into a 24/7 casino. You are constantly exposed to highlights, to curated lifestyles, to people who are either rich, pretending to be rich, or in debt, and staging it like wealth. Your brain takes that as the new normal, and you start upgrading your own life to match the reference point. That is not a budgeting problem. That is a psychological environment problem. So if you want a simple retention question to keep in your head, who am I trying to convince? Because if the answer is people who do not pay my bills, you just found a leak. Now, the 9th invisible wealth killer is one most people never price correctly. Housing, not just rent or mortgage, but the unrecoverable costs. People love to say rent is throwing money away, but owning a home has its own version of throwing money away. Mortgage interest, especially early in the loan, property taxes, insurance, repairs, maintenance, transaction costs when you buy and sell. A big chunk of your housing cost as an owner does not build equity. It is the cost of being housed. So the real question is not rent versus buy as a moral issue, it is rent versus buy as a math issue. And the math depends on your price to rent, relationship where you live, your time horizon, and your ability to invest the difference. Some people should buy, some people should rent. The trap is assuming one answer is universally adult and the other is universally stupid. The invisible wealth killer is not the choice. It is the blind script. And housing has another hidden trap, one that sounds responsible but can make you fragile. The early payoff obsession. People love the idea of being debt-free, so they throw every spare dollar at their mortgage. It feels like progress. It feels safe. But safety is not only about debt. Safety is also about liquidity. If you put all your cash into your house, you may have wealth, but it is trapped wealth. You cannot buy groceries with drywall. You cannot pay a mechanic with a brick. And when life hits you, the bank does not care that you have equity if you do not have income. So the invisible wealth killer here is dead equity, money locked in a place that cannot protect you when the emergency happens. If your mortgage rate is relatively low and you have no emergency fund, aggressively paying down the mortgage can be the opposite of safety. Again, this is not vibes, this is mechanics. Now, the 10th invisible wealth killer is the credit tax. Most people think of credit scores like a personal report card, like it is measuring whether you are good. In reality, it is measuring how profitable you are to lenders, and it changes the price of your entire life. Two people can buy the same house, the same car, the same insurance policy, and one pays massively more because their score is lower. Here is a clean math moment. Say you're getting a mortgage. A small difference in interest rate, even a little over 1 percentage point, can add up to 6 figures over a full loan term. That is not a little. That is a second house. And the credit tax shows up in auto insurance too, in many places. Even if you drive perfectly, you can pay more just because your credit is worse. So the invisible wealth killer is not bad credit. It is the compounding surcharge on everything you do, which means if you are trying to get ahead, improving credit is not about ego. It is about lowering the subscription price of your existence. Now, let's zoom out, because there is a bigger system-level trap that sits above all of these. The 11th invisible wealth killer is the two-income trap. Households used to have a built-in emergency lever. If one person lost a job, the other could work more or enter the workforce. But now, for many families, both adults have to work just to cover the baseline: housing, childcare, healthcare, transportation. Which means the household is running at full capacity all the time. And when you run at full capacity, you lose resilience. Then one thing breaks: a layoff, a health issue, a childcare disruption, and the whole structure wobbles. And here's the cruel part: a two-income household often triggers more spending leaks, more commuting, more convenience purchases, more delivery, more paid help, more stress spending. So you are earning more but keeping less because the system of life got more expensive to operate. This is why you can feel broke at a good household income. The machine eats it. Now, I want to do something important. I want to connect all these invisible wealth killers into one simple framework, because if you leave this video with 10 facts, you will forget them. If you leave with one filter, you will see traps everywhere. Here is the filter. Anytime you are about to spend money, ask, is this buying utility or is this buying relief? Utility is the thing that actually makes your life work. The reliable car that gets you to your job. The shoes that protect your feet. The basic insurance that prevents catastrophe. Relief is the thing you buy to temporarily numb stress, signal status, or patch a life that is too tight. Relief spending is often the most expensive spending because it repeats. Delivery is relief. Upgrading everything is relief. The premium tier you did not need is relief. The impulse "I deserve it" purchase after a brutal day is relief. And relief spending is not a moral failure. It is a symptom of low margin. When your life is tight, your brain seeks relief. When your life has margin, relief is optional. So the way out is not self-hatred. The way out is to build margin, so your brain stops screaming. Now here is the practical step that changes everything, and it is not glamorous. You build a micro emergency fund first, not a huge one, just enough to stop the fee spiral. Because fees are the tax on low buffers. Once you have a buffer, the system stops punching you in the face for timing issues. If you can hold even a few $100s that you do not touch, you break the overdraft cycle. You stop paying late fees. You stop paying rush shipping. You stop paying for emergencies with high-interest credit. That tiny fund is not savings. It is armor. Then you do the second step. You audit recurring payments like a detective. Subscriptions, memberships, insurance add-ons, warranties, app fees, premium tiers, device financing. These are invisible because they do not feel like purchases. They feel like background noise. But background noise is exactly how money disappears. If you cut $100 of monthly recurring waste, that is $1,200 a year. And here is the kicker. $1,200 a year invested over a long period becomes real wealth. Not hype wealth, freedom wealth. Now the third step is where most people finally feel a shift. You pick one giant leak and kill it. For some people, it is the car payment. For others, it is housing that is too big for their real hourly wage. For others, it is lifestyle creep disguised as normal adult stuff. You do not need to fix everything at once. You need one big win that creates margin. Because margin creates better decisions. Better decisions create more margin. That is the positive spiral, the one the system does not advertise. Now, before we land this plane, I want to talk about the most invisible wealth killer of all. It is not fees. It is not status. It is not cars. It is the belief that you are bad with money, so you stop trying. That belief is incredibly profitable for everyone selling you the expensive version of life. If you think you are the problem, you will never look for the hidden mechanics. You will shame yourself for buying groceries while ignoring the fact that your financial environment is designed to extract. So here is the new belief that is actually useful. You are not weak. You are operating inside a system that charges extra for being low on margin, then tells you it is your fault. Your job is not to become a perfect person. Your job is to become a person with enough margin that the system loses its grip. Once you have margin, you can do the fun part. You can start buying back your future. Because wealth, real wealth, is not a flashy watch. Wealth is options. Wealth is saying no to the job that is killing you. Wealth is fixing the car problem when it is 300, not when it becomes 3,000. Wealth is buying time. So if you want the final question to carry with you, it is this. Is this decision building options or selling options? A new monthly payment sells options. A higher fixed cost life sells options. A fee spiral sells options. But a buffer builds options. Lowering recurring expenses builds options. Investing consistently builds